A free lunchtime barbecue is a surefire crowd pleaser, and today the sausages came served with a message of student solidarity. The Newcastle University Students' Association is urging its members to look out for each other in the wake of recent attacks.
The students themselves obviously are very worried. I just visited one of the Filipino students who was bashed at Jesmond just several days ago.
Most recently, a 23-year-old woman, a Chinese national, was robbed and assaulted as she walked near the Jesmond bypass. Veronica Menezes says there have been other disturbing incidents.
Even the clothes of the students have been stolen from the lines. Clothes have been burned. Car has been broken into.
The university has moved to reassure international students.
We're doing lots of talking to students in lots of different environments to try and make them feel more comfortable that the community is truly a welcoming place and that the university is taking these sorts of things very seriously.
On-campus security has been strengthened and the university is liaising with police to protect students off campus where most attacks are taking place.
We are giving schools the facilities they deserve, but also, as you can see around us, creating lots of jobs right here in the Hunter Valley.
In the past, we've needed to use other facilities in the community. We haven't been able to hold things here, but now all that will change.
It's sights like these, a hammerhead shark cruising Lake Macquarie right near the Araring Power Station outlet that can put swimmers and surfers on edge. And at this time of year, as the water warms, marine experts say we'll see more sharks coming into the lake to give birth. The annual meshing program has resumed for another year, but debate continues over whether the nets do more harm than good.
There is no positives for the environment. As to whether they provide any protection, I don't think there's any overwhelming evidence to show that they do.
This year, a new education campaign will be rolled out across the state, encouraging people to steer clear of the water at dusk and dawn, which is when large schools of bait fish emerge.
Whilst the prey can't see them, the shark also has less visibility, so it is much more likely to mistake us for one of its prey animals.
But even without such precautions, marine experts say the risk of being attacked by a shark is extremely low because, quite simply, we are not on a shark's menu.
94% of shark bites worldwide are single bite events, which shows that essentially someone's in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
For a uni student, it'll be great for fuel and groceries, but also for art things, of course.
Old Boys Day might be on Sunday, but the coach was happy to have the club's greatest ever on hand today, let alone the players.
He liked what he saw and he liked the way Duro took control of the team, and there's definitely a good vibe in the camp.
Jared Mullen is relishing his return given he's getting back to the role in which he feels most dangerous, and that's just what his team needs.
I think I play my best footy at 5'8", so Scotty will be there directing all the boys around, and I can just stand wide and get the ball when I want it. So it suits my game plan down to it too.
There's no doubt Mullo needs to play a bit better than he did last week, and he realises that he's got to respond a little bit in that area.
Corey Patterson will start for the injured Zeb Taya, while Richie Fioso is good to go too. But any faint hopes Origin winger James McManus had of a return faded before training did. Old Boys Day or not, whoever runs out on Sunday knows what's on the line, and after falling a spot short of the finals last year, no one wants to go oh so close again.
It's weird how you can sort of play 26 games and only be 1 point away from making the top 8, but that's the way it's turned out. If we win, we're in. If not, we're out.
It's finals football a week early.
Any win I'm taking, absolutely. If we win by 1 or 10, doesn't really matter.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. From little things, big things grow. This is one group living up to that. In 11 years as a coach, former professional skater George Galanis has never seen such progression, prompting him to believe there's at least one future Olympian in the ranks.
These guys got a very good chance of getting on the world circuit in the next few years, so we're preparing for that, and hopefully, you never know, 2014 for the next Olympics.
At 11, Kalani Crane already dominates her age group in Australia, winning every title on offer this year.
I won States and Hollands before, but Nationals was a bit special.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like Kalani, Rebecca Delica was recently crowned Australian champion and shares an exhausting 6-day-a-week training regime. Despite mixing skating with study, the ambitions remain strong.
I want to represent Australia in the Junior Worlds and the Olympics. If you put your mind to it, you'll have some struggles, but you'll get there.
After just 2 years on the ice, Will Salisbury grabbed bronze at the Nationals but remains intent on carving out a name as the Hunters' first Olympic figure skater.
For someone that wants to go that far, you just got to put in the work, and you just got to, it's all or nothing. Like, you got to go for it for 100%, or you just might as well just give up.
It's a fair bet that won't be happening out here for a long time. On a day like this, who wouldn't want to spend the morning on the beach? But what about getting up at 5 a.m. every morning for 100 consecutive days to go for a surf? Well, that's what 16-year-old Ian Fletcher is doing each morning before school.
Got inspired by a guy in Northern California. His name's Dale Webster. He surfed 29 years straight, so I decided to take on 100 days.
The mission started after a challenge from good friend George McIntosh and developed into a way to raise money for hunter clown doctors. The pair ride their push bikes from Adamstown to Merriweather Beach every morning, catch at least one wave, then mark it off on this tally board. Today, day 97. There was a couple of days when the challenge was on shaky ground after Ian got concussion, then the flu, but he pushed on thanks to one very interesting incentive.
But he still got in every day, because he knew if he didn't get in and surf, he'd have to cut his hair off, and he didn't want to do that.
When the 100 days wraps up on Sunday, Ian will have raised about $4,000. And just how is the Year 10 student going to celebrate completing the challenge?
Surf more. Surf.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News. Premier Nathan Rees came to Newcastle amid expectation of an announcement on the future of the rail line. But what the city got was the announcement of another study, this time on transport arrangements based on the Hunter Development Corporation's previous report.
I don't know persuading of the need for investment. The challenge for us is to make sure that the investment is the right type, the right mix, to make sure that we set the city up for the future.
This study will look at whether to cut the train line at Wickham and just how much that will cost.
The simple fact of the matter is that we're moving. Inside 12 months in those jobs, we're moving on this, okay, in a way that our predecessors didn't.
The Premier says a sign of that progress is the allocation of $4 million worth of Crown land at Honeysuckle as part of Stage 1 of Newcastle University's new Business, Arts and Law precinct.
It's a great first step in allowing us to do a major redevelopment of the university, which will bring great benefit both to the university and to the city.
However, the Fix Our City Alliance, which also met with the Premier today, says it's disappointed with the outcome of that meeting and will now take a delegation to Canberra to try to get support and funding elsewhere.
And it's got to be people power now, so I think we go forward, and I'm sure that we'll have the support of the federal and state government to make sure that Newcastle gets fixed.
It's kick-started a campaign designed to pressure the Rees government into taking more action.
I can say to you quite clearly and confidently, the community wants to see that GP2 project go ahead. We can't afford to lose it.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
A very solid response to the Jobs Summit held earlier this year. Great news for the Hunter region, creating local jobs and boosting the local economy.
Everything about the Longworth Institute screams old world class.
Walking into the building, there's an instant sense of history and a sense of Newcastle's evolution that's been forgotten.
Architect Fred Menkins designed and oversaw its construction in 1893. His office remains largely unchanged and his personal touches, including evidence of his love of birds, are everywhere. Owner Anthony Ventura has spent the past 18 months having the building restored. It has 2 function rooms that he plans to use for wedding receptions and drawing rooms where a wine bar will be set up. Every piece of furniture, along with 56 chandeliers and light fixtures, has been custom made overseas and reflect the Victorian and Baroque styles of the building. The restorations cost around $800,000, 3 times the project's budget.
The cost has been frightening, and it's all, in old projects, well, old buildings like this, the cost always escalates beyond your worst imagination. But I'm hoping that over time it'll prove to be viable and appealing.
Aside from the expense, there's also been some more pleasant surprises.
I mean, things like finding, 19th century photographs underneath the stairs. Unfortunately, they were wet, but you can still see them, and we'll have them restored.
After being closed since 2000, the Longworth Institute should reopen next week. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Once complete, the Blue Tongue Brewery will be the second largest brewery in New South Wales and a major economic boost to the Central Coast and Hunter regions. And with the facility worth $120 million, little expense is being spared to make sure it meets the May deadline for completion. And the good news, it's a third of the way there.
We're right into the busy period of the construction, and when we start to, as the builder goes on and more contractors come on site, we'll be spending about $10 million a month.
So about 66% of the money that's being spent, the $120 million, is being spent with Australian companies, and of that, 50% of that is coming specifically here out of Newcastle and the Central Coast areas.
Around 200 jobs have been created during construction, and an additional 150 full-time positions will be offered once it's complete. And when it's up and running, around 48,000 bottles of beer will be produced every hour, or 50 million litres each year.
The whole reinvigoration of the harbour, turning it over to the people, becoming a usable space, I think is a wonderful thing for the city.
Sebastian Ogier started Friday's competition with a 3.5-second lead, but was quickly run down by Finland's Jari-Matti Latvala. The Ford driver put in a dominant performance on the first pass through the rally's longest stage. Despite complaints about the loose surface, there was little to separate the top five, just 16.6 seconds between them. Light showers fell throughout the morning, but that made little difference to the state of the roads, which remained extremely slippery in the open countryside around Kyogle and in the forests of Murwillumbah. At the end of Super Stage 9, Latvala said he was satisfied with his start to the rally.
Quite lean run, a couple of places went a little bit wide, but fairly satisfied. But it's interesting to see how well Sebastian Ogier is coming. He's flying today.
Ogier is driving his first full season in a World Rally car and is keen to maintain this kind of form.
Yeah, I'm happy, but it was a difficult stage. Very slippery, very narrow. But okay, no problem.
Citroën driver Danny Sordo rounded off the loop in third. Meanwhile, the two men battling for the 2009 driver's title, five-time world champion Sebastian Loeb and arch-rival Mika Hirvonen, went into this evening's stage in fourth and fifth respectively. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's a simple equation. Beat the Panthers and the Knights are finals bound.
This is my third year in first grade and I still haven't played finals football, so it's something I aspire to each year, and if I get the chance this year, all the boys will be ripping in, and like I said, we'll give it a fair shake, I think.
The NRL's marketing department couldn't have written a better script. A Father's Day clash with former Knights in the crowd and a handful, including Luke Walsh, coming back in black to crash the party.
Yeah, Walsh and I are great mates, we still are, and but when you get on the field, I won't be holding back on him, and I'll be after the little bugger.
Meanwhile, grand final fever has gripped the towns of Greta and Branxton, with local businesses showing their true colours. This Sunday, the Greta Branxton Club will host the Group 21 decider for the first time. Knights Development Officer and team coach Matt Lantry says the Colts have to forget about last year's grand final loss to Singleton and turn the tables this time.
The biggest thing is I think not only do we gain support from our local community, but there's plenty of supporters out through Cessnock, Carry and Maitland, so we've got plenty of support and there is a buzz around. We've just got to make sure we go and get the job done.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. With the victories, Danny Allsop controversially withdrawn prior to kick-off, an early injury to Billy Selesky gave the Jets an advantage. But Melbourne created the best chances and eventually a familiar face made the Jets pay. Newcastle failed to produce a shot on target in the first half. Just after an hour, Jason Hoffman finally forced a save. The coach had seen enough. 2 changes brought the Jets' attack to life, but a split-second decision almost cost them in defence. Top-Or Stanley was beaten by Nay Fabiano, but appeals for a penalty were dismissed, and with good reason, according to Kalina.
Why didn't he get a yellow card if it wasn't a penalty?
With time running out, Tarek Elrich made a rare break, and his perfect cross set up the Jet, who's flown home. Cleared to wear the gold shirt just 2 hours before kick-off, Haliti quickly removed it, resurrecting an old goal celebration.
I need to thank the coach for believing in me, for giving me an opportunity. I hope I've started repaying all the faith they've shown in me.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Noel Hurrell has rarely strayed from his daughter's bedside since rushing her to hospital on Tuesday. Jessica, who suffers from cystic fibrosis, contracted swine flu earlier in the week.
I got a bit of a dry cough and I had a bit of a temperature, but I sort of just went on normally because I didn't really notice it. And then it started just getting worse by the day.
Her medical condition means the 15-year-old is prone to chest infections, so it wasn't until she started coughing up blood that the family realised something was horribly wrong. Mr. Hurrell says as soon as they arrived at the emergency ward, medical staff swung into action.
She had fantastic response, she had nurses and doctors passing over and was in the bed within 3 hours.
Doctors tested Jessica for swine flu, but instead of waiting 2 days for the results, decided to treat her immediately. That decision made all the difference.
She went straight on to Tamiflu that night, and they just said if she never got that into her birdseed, that she would have been a very, very sick girl.
And for that, the family is eternally grateful.
Thank you for looking after me and for not letting it get any worse and for making me better.
Doctors say they were just doing their job.
Obviously at the moment we always consider swine flu as a possible diagnosis, and sure enough she was found to have that condition.
And while Jessica has to wait until Tuesday to be discharged, she's been granted day release tomorrow so she can spend Father's Day at home. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
McKenzie now darts out of one, darts out of two, and Jason McKenzie. Left-hand corner is Abraham now. Takes him on, dances through one, he's close, held up over the line, or is he up, looming up, gives it to Sharp, they won't catch Sharp from there, and Wyong hit back on the boot this time. It sits up a little bit, the number 3 in West Hill, it's there, it's come loose, very close to the line, fought the Curry players, forcing him over, but he held up, shut the gate. And there's a blue from Pearson, which is going to give Wyong a spot in this year's grand final. A pass that didn't have to be thrown. Theron Pearson just chucks one over his head. Jason McKenzie.
The game opened at a frantic pace. A Wanderers try was soon followed by a penalty to Merryweather's Sam Gilmore. Both sides were guilty of conceding cheap turnovers. Then, as the Greens spread the ball wide, Bill Coffey and Blake Creighton combined for a try worthy of the major semi to give Merryweather the lead for the first time. The Greens surrendered possession from the kick-off, but the two Blues couldn't find a way through. Brodie Duncan equal to the task in defence. A penalty to Wanderers' Luke Simmons brought the minor premiers level at 8-all. Then solid lead-up work from Merryweather's Jason Strachan put Duncan over in the corner, helping the Greens to a 7-point lead at half-time. In NBN State League football, Valentine Phoenix has made history, qualifying for the club's first grand final with a 1-0 win over Broadmeadow this afternoon. After drawing 2-all in the first leg, Valentine Phoenix had the advantage going into the return fixture. Valentine Phoenix did all the attacking early. Magic keeper Scott Carter called on several times to save his team. After the break, the Magic finally came to life, but after several raids, the sides remained locked at 0-all. That was until the home side's Shane Paul slotted his shot low into the corner to send Valentine Phoenix into the decider.
You see things on television like this, but until you see it in real life, it's a totally different thing. It just cuts you in half.
The wind's causing the fire to spread fairly rapidly in a couple of different directions, but we've got crews on either side of the fire, and we'll just wait and see where it appears to come out first.
They wanted attention, and there's no better place for it. A packed house at Energy Australia Stadium, costing tens of thousands of dollars. The Fix Our City campaign is gaining momentum, today playing ads on the stadium's big screen.
I don't think people need to think it's an advertising campaign. This is a definite protest saying we want our city fixed and we want it fixed now.
The group kicked off the protest last week, handing out postcards to pressure the Premier to make a decision on the future of the rail line, and this is just the beginning.
There'll be more things rolled out as we go forward until such time as the government finally takes notice and says, yes, we'll give you a date about we're supporting the HDC report, and we are going to get on and do and fix the City of Newcastle.
While supporting the campaign, Newcastle Mayor John Tate says it shouldn't take the focus off progress that is being made, such as the reopening of Hunter Street Mall.
And I'm just a little bit hesitant to think that it may be putting a downer on some of the other aspects that are good.
Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
Both sides looked dangerous in the opening 20, but it was the Singleton Greyhounds who struck first. 5'8" Trent Green backed up well before beating several defenders on his way to the line. Not to be outdone, Greta Brankston responded quickly, swinging the ball through the hands to centre Ben Russell, who scored in the corner. The seesawing contest continued. 3 minutes later, Singleton was over again, courtesy of fullback Tom Ernest. The Colts then turned to lock Ronald Davies, the Group 21 Player of the Year, receiving a short ball from dummy half before crashing over. With halftime approaching, tensions flared after this high shot. In the second half, Greta Brankston grabbed the lead for the first time, centre Aaron Clark on the end of some solid support play. But the defending premiers wouldn't lay down. Another try brought them close as the punches flew again. Clinging to a 2-point lead, the Colts delighted the bumper home crowd as Jonathan Newton split some tired defence. A scoreless final 15 helping Greta Brankston secure the shield for the first time.
Oh, look, it's just a shock. You know, I just can't believe that, you know, something like that's happened. You know, and to have something like this happen in your own neighbourhood is just, it's really mind-boggling.
Flowers and cards in memory of a young life lost. Messages from grief-stricken friends adorn the fence of this Bonnells Bay property where Ryan Dodkin died in an horrific car crash just before 3 yesterday morning. Jeff Kilday heard the sickening thud from his house a kilometre down the road and was first on the scene.
I feared there was more than one car involved, and I thought it might have been a lot more fatalities than what there was.
The Holden station wagon ploughed through a fence and into a tree, ripping in half. 16-year-old Ryan was thrown from the vehicle. This is all that's left of the car, a twisted pile of metal. Early indications are that the teenage driver was speeding. The police investigation is ongoing, and at this stage it's unclear how the 16-year-old, who's not old enough to have a provisional licence, came to be behind the wheel. Anyone with information is being encouraged to contact Crime Stoppers. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
Warners Bay already has streets with rows of villas and townhouses, and it could be the way of the future, rather than the great Australian dream of a freestanding home on a quarter-acre block. The state government, along with Lake Macquarie Council, is looking at overriding existing rules to build higher density housing, including villas and granny flats in residential zones, close to services and transport.
Under the State Environment Planning Policy that came out in August this year, it allows for a range of these things to be included under the normal residential zone.
Lake Macquarie Council will tonight discuss amending its own local environment and development control plans to create a better range of low-cost housing and rental options. And while some may be concerned about the potential impact on property values due to higher density housing in their neighbourhood, the Mayor is hoping there will be community support.
Whilst there has been some resentment or some concern about it from some quarters, overall it seems to have worked quite well, and I think people are quite reasonable. They do understand that things do change with time.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. This was Newcastle in its heyday, as smartly dressed families shopped in bustling Hunter Street. Merv Atkin remembers those days well, and having spent the last 54 years in business, he's witnessed the peaks and troughs. He remembers when traffic flowed through the mall and supports its reopening, as well as GPT's retail development plan.
When it goes through, Newcastle will be tremendously revitalised. It'll bring Newcastle back to life again, and it'll be a place Newcastle will be proud of.
The 69-year-old is retiring at the end of next month and plans to sell the family business bought by his father in 1945. About 200 metres away, Tony Ruffo has been snipping and styling for 47 years. He's more frank about the CBD, claiming the area is dead, and he wants council to provide free parking to revitalise the city.
That's the first thing they should do, and give a couple of hours parking to everybody like they do in any other place.
As for the issue dividing the community, there's a mixed response from the pair.
I think the railway should go because I don't think we got any need for it.
It would be much better if we had light rail coming into Newcastle.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's a stressful world, no doubt, but what effect does our mental state have on our physical health?
There is a very tight link between emotional life and physical life and physical health.
Dr. Eugene Nalivoko from the University of Newcastle is leading studies into stress-induced heart conditions. His team has found that by using a class of drugs commonly seen in psychiatric care, they can stop the brain from sending stress signals that raise the heart rate.
That apart from relieving anxiety, it prevents those neural influences that the stressed brain sends to the heart.
It's an exciting finding and one of many projects presented at a medical conference in Newcastle, which has attracted top international neuroscience minds. The Hunter research could have implications in preventing sudden cardiac death, which claims 3 million lives around the world each year. The research is ongoing, but already there's a message for us all.
Unless we control and we learn to control our emotions, we cannot get in control of our lives.
Researchers hope there'll be clinical trials of the treatment in coming years.
With a finals match to plan for, this visit to Sydney was only ever going to be a quick one for Kurt Gidley. Despite the rough weather, it was smooth sailing as the captain returned to Newcastle. He's now looking forward to sharing the week with fans and teammates.
It was a really proud moment yesterday, being captain, walking around the stadium and seeing so many happy faces about us winning that game, firstly, and then to be in the top 8. So looking forward to seeing plenty of buses and plenty of blue and red down there on Saturday.
While Gidley enjoyed the spoils, his teammates were contemplating Newcastle's first trip to the final since 2004. Yesterday's man of the match, Adam McDougall, believes the win over the Panthers was a great start.
Being able to keep Penrith to 0, given the attacking calibre in their side, was a huge boost going into the finals. Obviously, semi-finals are built on defence, and yesterday we showed a lot of steel and grit in our defence.
The Mad Dog is yet to decide whether he'll play next year, meaning this week could hold added significance.
Yesterday I didn't think about it being my last game, but if it does come to the end, I've had a good career, and so be.
Scott Duro is already enjoying the finals build-up more than most. Pre-match pep talks from coach Rick Stone and Andrew Johns provided a timely boost ahead of his return to first grade.
Definitely got some confidence behind me now after that sort of game, and as a team we do as well. We hold no fears going into the Bulldogs this weekend.
The Knights have beaten 6 teams in the top 8, but no, the Dogs are dangerous, with or without injured halfback Brett Camorley.
It's probably good that he's not playing because he's just been so dominant this year. But in saying that, we can't take him lightly because if we do, we'll get touched up.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. If a happy squad makes for a winning team, then the Jets are on the brink of something special. The mood at today's training session could only be described as enthusiastic and buoyant, following their come-from-behind 1-1 draw with Melbourne.
We're enjoying training and it's showing on the pitch, I guess. First half was a little bit disappointing, but yet we came out and showed what we're capable of, and I think the difference between this year and last year is that we probably would have lost 1-0.
In more good news, Fabio Vignaroli is likely to return from injury this weekend against Brisbane. Meanwhile, young defender Ben Kantarovski is expected to resume training on Thursday following a long layoff. He's one of 3 Jets expected to be named in the Australian under-20 side tomorrow. Kaz Patafta is another young star who has always been earmarked for big things. The former Melbourne player was certainly smiling when the Jets stole a point from the victory. With more consistent game time, Patafta believes he'll prove to Jets fans he's worth the wait.
Things feel a bit more stable for me. I feel like I've got a bit more of a home here in Newcastle and can finally work on my football and get a chance to play.
Largely unused by Gary Van Egmond, Kaz has found a fan in coach Branko Kalina.
He lets you know what he expects, and it's really good to have a coach finally that gives you that sort of confidence.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The blaze erupted inside the Henry Street property at 9:30 last night. According to witnesses, it spread through the home in just minutes. By the time firefighters arrived, it was too late to save a 57-year-old woman, today identified only as Mary.
It was well alight, I believe, on arrival. 3 New South Wales Fire Brigade stations attended, plus with our rescue appliance.
Distraught family and friends visited the scene this morning and left floral tributes. Investigations indicate the blaze started in the lounge room where the woman's body was found and was caused by either an electrical fault or a heater. Neighbours say they heard what sounded like an explosion coming from inside the home. When they rushed outside to investigate, they found it engulfed by flames. And while they knew that the woman was trapped inside, they say there was nothing they could do to save her. Madeline Bond, NBN News. These photos show just how intense the blaze was. Shortly before 2 a.m, Max, Jessie and Stumpy detected the danger and alerted their owners Avril Bennett and Peter Harris.
My dogs were barking, they woke me up. I looked out the bedroom window and as I looked across the road I saw my neighbour's garage on fire and it was moving very quickly.
The couple sprung out of bed and into action, knowing their 84-year-old neighbour was asleep inside, and with no thought for his own safety, Peter smashed through Rex Single's bedroom window with his bare hands.
Yelling out for Rex, and finally come to the window and he was a bit stunned and yelling out who's there and whatever, and we grabbed him and sort of lifted him out through the window.
Today, Max briefly returned to his ruined home, shaken but otherwise unhurt. Police intend to nominate the couple for bravery awards, saying their actions undoubtedly saved Max's life. Officers are also investigating arson attacks on a garage in Kingstown Road and another in Lawson Avenue. Luckily, in that case, the fire was extinguished before it caused any damage.
Due to the proximity and the similar nature of the fires at this stage, we're confident that all 3 events are linked.
There's a cross, large signs, even service times advertised out the front, and for passers-by there was no confusion about what the building in Maitland Road is.
It's a church, isn't it?
I think that there's a childcare in there and a church.
Community church where everyone goes to.
But local court magistrate Elaine Truscott wasn't satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that the Islington Baptist Church is a place of worship and said, "I do not know whether it is being used or not." That created a loophole as the man Murray James Rogers was facing a charge of soliciting for prostitution in view of a church. She told the police prosecutor, "The only picture I've got is a picture of a warehouse-looking building with a cross on it." She dismissed the matter, saying the prosecution did not obtain enough evidence to prove it was a church. That's incensed residents and the senior pastor of the church.
I was very surprised by that. I mean, we've been here a long time, 123 years on this spot.
And he says it could easily have been verified for the magistrate.
I think a little bit more exploration would have been a good idea.
Essentially, it's a waste of money and time on the police's part.
The Islington Action Group is now concerned the ruling will set a precedent. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. He's one of Australia's top scientists in the field of alternative energy and greenhouse gas mitigation, and he's working in our own backyard. Now Dr. John Wright is passing on his know-how after publishing a book. Among his top tips, switching off appliances when they're not in use.
By the simple expedient of turning these devices off at the power point, you will save about, we estimate, up to 10% of your energy bills by just simply not using standby power.
And he says as individuals we're not powerless, with every little bit helping the environment.
There's 21 million of us, and if everybody did their best in saving energy, we estimate you could cut Australia's greenhouse gas emissions by something like 10%.
There's plenty of energy-smart homeowners who are already practising what Dr Wright is preaching, including Brian Havenhand. With solar panels, a 10,000-litre water tank and a compost worm farm, he's opening his Newcastle home to the public this Sunday to pass on his own advice. For more information about the open houses in your area, visit sustainablehouseday.com.
The cement footings for Cessnock Public School's new hall are about to be poured, but all the dirt and several gum trees which had to be removed to make way for the foundations are being recycled into a brand new garden.
It was a shame to lose so many gum trees, so we asked for the mulch to be here, and now we're putting into our bush tucker garden.
Students planted the native trees today with Conservation Volunteers Australia chipping in some extra manpower, turning an unused part of the playground into a drought-tolerant oasis. As well as coming up with the idea for the garden, the school's Environment Committee won funding from the local council to install a dozen bird nesting boxes.
The kids are our future land carers, and as we go through climate change and rainfall changes and temperature changes, I think it's an important part of education that children learn to look after their environment, to respect their environment and do positive things to maintain it.
Well, it's improving the school and it's keeping everyone fit and strong with all the shoveling and everything going on.
Schools around the region and around Australia can put in expressions of interest to have conservation volunteers come out and undertake environmental projects on their land.
If the Australian under-20s make it past the group stage, the three young Jets will be away until the middle of October, leaving Newcastle with holes up front. Branko Kalina is confident Sasho Petrovski and Donny de Groot can do the job.
Luckily for us, Labanot Haliti can play up front as well. So, we'll patch up, but it is disappointing because Sean Rooney was just starting to come good for us.
Rooney has overcome injuries and personal tragedy to earn the call-up to his first national team. No doubt that goal against Gold Coast put selectors on notice.
A week ago I thought I wasn't even in the 30, and then snuck my way into the 21, so I'm pretty happy, yeah.
Rooney will be joined by Hunter Juniors Ben Kantarovski and Jason Hoffman. Having recovered from a knee reconstruction, Hoffman says selection is the perfect reward for months of hard work.
For an opportunity like the World Cup to come around, it's something where you'll be playing the superstars of the future. So, especially with the likes of Brazil in our group, it'll be an experience hopefully we'll never forget.
Fellow striker Jason Nidovsky was shattered after missing the cut, but is hoping to turn the negative into a positive by securing a starting spot with the Jets. The coach will give him every opportunity.
Now that he's missed out, he might have to take a bit more responsibility and try and really focus and establish himself.
Stephen Baker is still swinging thanks to the Westpac chopper. He was badly hurt in a workplace accident and credits his recovery to a quick trip to hospital aboard the chopper. Steve was one of 260 people taking part in the Black Coal Golf Day in Muswellbrook. The annual fundraiser has now gathered more than $800,000 over the past 9 years. Local schools spent the year fundraising as well. As a reward, 500 kids got the chance to meet Knights players Ben Cross and Dan Toller.
Like, we're all mine workers, and that yellow helicopter, mate, one day it's been at our place 3 or 4 times out of Drayton Coal. And it's a big asset to everyone that lives up in the valley.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.